Las Vegas, 2012. A private penthouse on the Strip. One of the most expensive parties ever thrown. Millions of dollars spent in a single night. Champagne towers stacked high. Music shaking the entire room. Lights flashing across a crowd of the world's most powerful and famous people. This wasn't just a party, it was a spectacle. And at the center of it all, the man paying for everything. The birthday boy, Chow Lo. Surrounded by some of the biggest names on the planet. Leonardo DiCaprio, Jamie Foxx, Denzel Washington, Beyoncé, Kanye West, models, influencers, elites. To everyone in that room, he looked like a billionaire. Young, untouchable, limitless. A man who could spend millions without hesitation. But none of it was real because the party was only the surface. Joe Lo wasn't just spending money. He was buying his way into Hollywood. Behind the scenes, he helped finance a major film, The Wolf of Wall Street, a movie about greed, about fraud, about a man named Jordan Belfort, who built his empire on deception. The film became a global success. Over 400 million in revenue, Oscar nominations, worldwide attention. And Joe Lo? He wasn't watching from the sidelines. He was inside it, living in the same world he helped create. Private jets, luxury yachts, rare artwork. He gifted multi-million-dollar pieces, including works linked to Jean-Michel Basquiat, to celebrities like Leonardo DiCaprio. Gifts so expensive, they later became evidence, because those gifts weren't generosity. They were stolen, and that's the irony. While the world watched a movie about fraud, while Hollywood celebrated success, while celebrities partied under lights and music, the man behind it all was quietly executing one of the largest financial scams in history. The money behind the party, the money behind the movie, the money behind the lifestyle was never his, and no one in that room knew. They were standing inside a crime. He stole billions of dollars from his own country, approximately $4.5 billion. Money meant to develop Malaysia, build infrastructure, and transform the nation's future. But to understand how this was even possible, we have to go back to how a young man rose from obscurity to a position where a prime minister would trust him with access to national wealth. And the question is simple. How does someone like that even get in the room? Was he a politician? A banker? A government official? No, he was none of those things. It all started with one connection. He befriended the prime minister's stepson, a relationship that opened doors he was never supposed to walk through. Because in politics, access is everything, and that one friendship became the doorway. From there, he didn't enter power directly. He entered through influence, through private circles, through luxury, through proximity to those already inside the system. Slowly, carefully, he became a familiar presence around the highest levels of government, not as a leader, but as someone trusted. And once trust is built at that level, questions begin to disappear. That is how it started. Not with force, not with authority, but with access. And from that point forward, the door to billions was no longer locked. But the real question is, why would a prime minister trust him with billions? It didn't happen by accident. It was a calculated decision. At the time, Malaysia wanted something bigger. They didn't just want to grow locally, they wanted global influence. International investment, connections to the world's biggest financial markets. They needed someone who understood that world. Someone who could bridge Malaysia with global capital, especially American investment networks. And Joe Lo positioned himself perfectly for that role. He had connections overseas. He moved in international circles. He presented himself as someone who understood global finance, luxury investment, and elite Western business culture. And most importantly, he was close to the Prime Minister's inner circle, close to decision-making, close enough to be trusted. So when the idea of a national investment fund came forward, 1MDB, the decision was made. He was appointed as a key advisor, given influence, given authority, and eventually given access, full control over billions of dollars. But what looked like expertise was actually access being granted to the wrong person because the trust wasn't built on truth. It was built on perception. He wasn't seen as a criminal. He was seen as a connector to global opportunity, and that mistake opened the door to one of the largest financial scandals in history. But once he had access, the question became, how do you move billions without anyone noticing? The answer was not force. It was not hacking. It was layers. Billions of dollars from one MDB didn't leave the system all at once. They left slowly, step by step, through a web of companies that looked completely legitimate on paper. Shell companies, dozens of them, hundreds in total, spread across different countries. Switzerland, Singapore, Cayman Islands. Each transfer looked normal on its own. One company would invest in another. Then that company would transfer funds somewhere else. Then another layer. Then another. So by the time the money reached its final destination, it no longer looked like government money. It looked like global business activity. And that's where the real deception happened. Because on paper, everything had a reason. Everything had a label. Everything had a purpose. Infrastructure investment, energy deals, international partnerships. But in reality, the money was being redirected quietly, away from the system and into private control. And once the money reached private accounts, it didn't disappear. It transformed. It became luxury. It became influence. It became Hollywood. But what made this so dangerous was simple. Nothing looked illegal at first glance. Everything was structured to look normal until it was already gone. And by the time anyone started asking questions, the money had already moved too far to trace easily. That is how the system worked. Not through breaking rules, but by making everything look like it was following them. But there was a deeper reason behind all of it. Why fund Hollywood? Why finance films like The Wolf of Wall Street starring Leonardo DiCaprio? The official story was simple. It was framed as investment, a way to bring international business, media influence, and global partnerships back into Malaysia. Something that looked legitimate on paper. But the real objective was different. It was image. By placing himself inside Hollywood, surrounded by celebrities, luxury, and global attention, he wasn't just spending stolen money. He was building a false identity. To his home country, it looked like success. It looked like international influence. It looked like someone who could move billions globally. And that perception was powerful, because it made people stop asking questions. In reality, the Hollywood spending wasn't just lifestyle. It was cover, a way to hide the origin of the money by making it look like global investment success. For years, no one questioned it deeply. The money kept moving. The lifestyle continued. The illusion stayed intact. But in 2015, things started to shift. Journalists and investigators began tracing unusual financial flows linked to 1MDB. Money meant for national development was appearing in luxury accounts, private companies, and overseas assets. And as the investigation began to grow inside Malaysia, something unexpected happened. Some Malaysian authorities who tried to dig deeper were stopped because the early reports being shown to the Prime Minister looked legitimate. The documents, the explanations, the financial summaries, everything was carefully presented to appear normal. So when concerns were raised, they were dismissed. Not out of corruption at first, but out of trust and misinformation. The Prime Minister believed what he was being shown. He believed the fund was operating properly. He believed the money was being invested as intended. And because of that, he continued to trust the man at the center of it all, Cho Lo. That trust became protection, and that protection lasted for years. So even as questions began to rise, the system defended itself, not with force, but with false perception. But outside Malaysia, the truth was starting to break through, because investigators in other countries were not seeing investment. They were seeing a pattern, a trail of money that didn't make sense. And slowly, the illusion began to collapse. Outside Malaysia, this is the fact. As international investigators began connecting the financial dots, a pattern became undeniable. Money linked to 1MDB was not where it was supposed to be. It had moved across countries, banks, and layers of shell companies designed to hide its origin. And once foreign authorities stepped in, the system began to break. In 2015, the story went public. Global investigations expanded rapidly, and what once looked like legitimate investment activity was exposed as something far more serious. Billions of dollars were frozen, assets were seized, bank accounts were shut down. Luxury homes, private jets, mega yachts, art collections, all traced back through the same financial network. And at the center of it all, one name kept appearing: Cholo. But the consequences didn't stop there. Back in Malaysia, the political impact was massive. The Prime Minister connected to the scandal was voted out of office, and later he was convicted and sentenced to prison for corruption and abuse of power. What started as an investment fund had now brought down the highest level of government. Meanwhile, as the investigation expanded globally, the man at the center of it all had already vanished. No arrest, no trial, no public appearance, just disappearance. A global manhunt was launched. Multiple countries joined the search, and in some reports, rewards were considered for information leading to his capture. But despite the pressure, he could not be found. And as the search continued, speculation began to grow. Some claimed he had changed his identity. Others believed he had altered his appearance to avoid recognition. There were even theories of cosmetic surgery. But none of this was ever confirmed. What was confirmed was simple: he had completely vanished. And the man who once stood in Hollywood parties, surrounded by celebrities, luxury, and influence, had now become invisible to the world.